rubbing against your neck, I think.
Oh, okay.
We're good.
All right, we're good. Cool. I'm Luke Davis. I'm 26 years old, and this is my journey so far. So growing up, my family always went to church. My parents on both sides were very involved in church. My granddad was actually a pastor, and so I was very familiar with that. But I can't really pinpoint my journey with Christ other than when I was like 7 years old. I think that would be the moment where I started becoming curious about faith and Jesus and who he is. And it happened one day at church. My best friend at the time, Ben Smith, he went up to the front of the church and he got into what looked like a pool at church. And I'm like, I want to do that. And I'm like, this is so amazing, this is so cool. And so it led me to ask some questions. I asked my mom, I was like, what was Ben doing today? And she said, he was being baptized. That's what you call baptism. And so that led to some questions about what baptism is and who Jesus is. And it was in that moment that I asked Christ into my heart. And I would say from about that age to about 15 years old, that time in between, while it's not a long time, there was some definite struggles. When I was 9 years old, I was introduced to pornography for the very first time, and I was like, oh my gosh, that's what a woman looks like naked? Oh my God, whoa! Like in that moment, I'd never seen that before. And so at 9 years old, I would seek that out. You know, I was addicted to it. That decision to continue to look at that led to a relationship when I was 12 years old. When I was 12 years old, I started a relationship with this girl who I really didn't know that much about her, but she was 2 years older than me. And little did I know, I would do a lot of growing up in that relationship, but not the kind of growing up that a 12-year-old should be doing. Just a few months into that relationship, it turned into a sexual relationship. Because of that, I grew this infatuation with her, and it's so crazy how addiction and really sexual intimacy can blind you to things around you. That type of relationship was out of context when it comes to marriage. Like, that is something sacred and something for marriage, but I didn't realize that at the time. And so I thought I loved this girl. And because of that, that whole year being in that relationship, it really tore me up on the inside because this was somebody who I thought I loved, but I later realized this person did not feel at all about me the way I felt about them. But because I was so blinded by addiction, I couldn't see that, right? I wanted to believe that she was something that she really wasn't. But one day, the moment came where I realized this girl doesn't really care that much about me. And I broke that relationship off. And it was in that moment, at the young age of going into 13 years old, I realized, you know what? I don't want to date again until I feel like it's the right person. Because of that, I never went looking for it. Instead, it kind of found me. So when I was 15 years old, just a few short years later, again, no intentions of dating or anything like that, this girl walks into my life who I knew her for a very short amount of time, and I knew there was something different about her. There was something different about her, like she was completely different than that other girl, and really she was completely different than all the girls around me. So there was just something, I know this sounds cheesy, but there was something angelic about her.
My name is Leah, and I am Luke's wife. Me and Luke met 11 years ago in October. When we originally met, we were young. I was 14, he was 15. Clearly was not looking for my husband at 14 years old, but God has been faithful. When we first met, Luke brought a lot of shame into our relationship, I think from his past, but he always treated me with kindness and respect. Those things I know in his past were really hard for him, was really hard to share for me, and it took a lot of grace and patience, I think, in our relationship. But since then, God has been really faithful in our lives. We've been married now for 3 years. Now we're 3 years in, and we're expecting our first baby May 31st. And it's just been an exciting journey for me too, not just seeing Luke come to know himself fully and his identity in Christ, but also now getting to watch him as we move into this new journey of him becoming a father.
What is pretty incredible is she was not something that I was looking for. That relationship at that age was not something I was looking for. But when we started that relationship, it just felt so natural. And her family loved me and I loved her family, and I really didn't know where it would go from there because it's a high school relationship. But 8 years later, 8 long years later, we got married. And I'll never forget that day. I think about that, and I think about how hurtful and how frustrating it was in those middle school years. And I look back now and I see the healing that has taken place because of the power of Jesus Christ, because of forgiveness, because of love, because of her accepting me. I mean, that was a part of my past that I really wanted to just kind of push under the bed and hope that nobody would ever see. Like, even knowing that much about me and knowing that about me, she still loved me and she still wanted to have a relationship with me. So it's powerful what God can do in your life, and it's extremely powerful when you give up your plans for His plans.